torture didn't really work. We got very little information, if any, out of it. As the FBI director under George Bush, Robert Miller, says, they were able to prevent no attacks based on the information that they got. So Dick Cheney's wrong about that. It's a violation of U.S. law and international law. So why bother doing all this? What was the point? Well, Ron Suskind has a theory that I agree with. He's a very well-known reporter, and he also wrote The 1% Doctrine and has good sources inside the Bush administration. And on Rachel Maddow's program on MSNBC, he said that it was done, let me quote here, so that we can essentially link Saddam to the 9/11 attacks and then march into Iraq with the anger of 9/11 behind us. That was the goal and was being passed down as a directive. He says this began when we wanted to go into Iraq and we wanted to get information. And it would get worse and worse every time we did not get that information that Cheney wanted. He would go back and tell the interrogators, no, give me more, do it again. Go to a new level of enhanced interrogation, etc. And what they started calling this attempt to link Iraq and Al-Qaeda at the CIA, there became a term for it. It was called, quote, the requirement. I think it's damning. So at the CIA, they think, well, we have to get this evidence, whether it exists or it doesn't. And if we got to water somebody 83 times like we did with Abu Zubaydah, or 183 times as we did with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed to get it, maybe it'll get through their thick head eventually that that's the information we're looking for, whether it exists or it doesn't exist. In fact, they did an extraordinary rendition of another detainee called al-Libi. They brought him to Egypt, where they beat the living hell out of him, and then they buried him alive, and he thought that's it, they were going to kill him. And then they, at the last second, pulled him out, and he said, okay, you win. What do you need me to tell you? And the CIA wrote in their notes at the time, he seemed to be searching for a way to please us so that we can stop doing what we're doing. And he was at a loss as to what to make up. That's what the CIA notes on it say. And eventually he stumbled onto, what do you want to know? Saddam and Al-Qaeda are linked? They're like, bingo, that's it. And he's like, okay, great, yes, they were linked. Please stop torturing me. And so is it possible that we didn't accidentally get that wrong information? It's not that we didn't know that these tactics elicit false confessions. The original Chinese memo that we took this from said ways to get false confessions. So, in fact, the real motive here could have been, and in my opinion, and in Ron Suskind's opinion, the real motive, the requirement, was to get the false information. Was so that we could beat these guys halfway to death so they could finally say, all right, I'll make up a connection between Saddam and Al-Qaeda. And then, by the way, they use this information to make the case to the American people and to the world. They then fed al-Libi's statements to Colin Powell as if they were fact, and he included it in his UN presentation. And then Cheney referred to, I can't tell you what these top terrorists have said, but they've connected Iraq and Al-Qaeda together. Later, the CIA would say, our bad, no, the al-Libi information was unreliable, and what Zubaydah said about that was unreliable and not true. But by that time, we had already invaded Iraq. So Dick Cheney's mission was accomplished. So you think that torture didn't work? Well, it depends on your goal. If your goal was to get bad information, it did work. So I think people are looking at it a little bit wrong, and I think that if they start to look at it in that way, it might begin to make a little bit more sense to them.